What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification and put that thing on all so you get notified first to know of any new content on the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. So this one I'm going to be talking about and giving a prediction for Amir versus Kell Brook. This is a fight that's obviously about 10 years in the making. Both guys, I don't think they fought. They didn't fight in the amateurs, but they sparred in the amateurs. There's stories about this, and these are two guys that have been in talks. This matchup is one of them that many people, including myself, we thought that this matchup wasn't going to happen. I thought it was never going to happen. Thought they went on their separate paths, and that was it. It wasn't going to happen. But here we are. We have it, and I'm very glad that we do have it. Both guys are obviously past their best at this point. Both guys have had wars. Both guys have had very tough fights that have taken attacks on their body, that have taken a toll on them. And in one sense, this fight is about who's got more left. And I think technically, I reckon that's what it's going to come down to. If this fight took place several years ago, I would probably have favoured Kell Brook. I think his timing would be Amir Khan's speed. But obviously this is a different day. We're not talking about when it should have happened. We're talking about right now when both men are at the end of their careers. I think Khan was talking about retirement after this fight. So anyway, let's get into it. So I saw the gloves are off. That would have been early hours of this morning. I saw that, and as expected, it was quite fiery. Both men had their points to prove, and both men, you could see that there was a genuine dislike there. There was genuine animosity. They were giving different accounts of the sparring story. That they sparred, and the one from years ago on Ringside, when that used to be a show on Sky Sports, Amir Khan said he boxed Kell Brook all around the ring and he done this and done that. Kell Brook said, no, you didn't, I've never been schooled before. And in this account, same sort of thing happened again. Brook said, yeah, I'll give him credit. He was pinging me for the first part of the spar, first half of the round. But then I started getting used to his speed and I started to time in. And then they cut the sparring short after 3 rounds because it was getting a bit heated. Amir Khan denied it. He said, no, in the amateurs, they just let you go. If the sparring gets rough, the sparring gets rough. They're not going to stop it because it's getting too much. So they had their little conflict there with the sparring story. Amir Khan, his demeanor, his character in this interview was very self-assured, very cocksure of himself. He was very, in terms of his tone, he was using a very mocking tone when he was talking about Kell Brook. Like, come on, Kell, you're down here, I'm up here. So he was very, he had this kind of elitism vibe to what he was, to the way he was addressing Kell Brook. You could tell that he feels that Kell Brook is several levels below him. Kell Brook is clearly not on his level. And he also said something that stuck out to me, was that he said, well, my team is actually the one that reached out to you guys and we made the deal happen. It wasn't you guys that made it happen. And that was one of them that stuck out to me because over the years, it's mostly been from my observation that Kell Brook seems to be the one who's more sort of keen on this fight than is Amir Khan. Kell Brook seemed to be the one that needed the fight and sort of wanted the fight, whereas Amir Khan was always like, well, win a belt and get to me, win this and win that, beat this guy. Amir Khan was more sort of, I'm ahead of you, I don't really need you, so I'm doing my thing, I don't really need you, Kell Brook. And he always sort of, from what I saw, he always kind of teased Kell Brook and sort of, he always just was quite dismissive of him, that he didn't need him. That was the impression I got from it, and that was a similar impression here when you watch this interview. Kell Brook was kind of the opposite. Kell Brook seemed quite genuinely keen, and he seemed quite frustrated in this interview by what Khan was saying. Very frustrated by Khan's rhetoric, and he said, well, why has the fight taken so long to get on? It was like, what? asking Khan, well, why is it taking so long? If you guys are so keen on it, why is it taking this many years? And Khan was like, be quiet, Kell. You know, this is the fight's happening now, and that's it. You know, Khan was just very much controlling certain things in the narrative, in the conversation. You know, Brook was like, well, it's taking so long. Khan's like, well, it's happening now. We made it happen. We approached you. So it was quite dismissive there. And Brook was, you know, during the course of it, Khan stated several times that, yeah, you've already lost the fight, Kell. You've already lost it. You're an empty man. And Brook sort of smiled at this and he said, yeah, you know what's happening. You're getting knocked out. So both guys were quite sure of themselves. You could see that of the two, Khan was more sort of in control of himself in a way. Khan was more sort of measured in his approach out of these two guys, and whereas Brook was quite animated, and Khan was like, calm down, Kell, calm down, Kell. So you can tell that Amir Khan might actually be in Kell Brook's head at this point in time. I don't know, but he might be in his head, because you could see there's a lot of frustration coming from Kell Brook. And, you know, at the end of the day, at the end of that interview, obviously, Johnny Nelson, he asked for a handshake, and he said, you know, he says, can I get a handshake, guys? It happened with Groves and Frotch Groves, and with everybody, he asked for a handshake, and Khan put his hand out, and you could tell the way Khan put his hand out, it was, you know, one of them sarcastic ones where, there you go, take that. And Brook was very serious, and Brook said, no, I'm not shaking your hand. Shake your hand after the fight. You know, I want to knock you out now. I don't want to shake your hand. I want to knock you out. And he, you know, he said at certain points that Khan deserves a slap. So it was a real animosity there, and even a mock. You know, Khan offered the hand. Kell Brook was like, no, I just want to fight you. I just want to knock you out, sort of thing. So in terms of strategies to win, I feel that in terms of for Amir Khan, in order for him to win this fight, I would say he has to do what he normally does in terms of having a fast start. I think tactically Amir Khan has to start fast, and because when Khan starts fast, he befuddles people, he baffles people. I mean, you see it even though he got stopped by Danny Garcia. Those first, I think, 3 rounds or whatever it was, Garcia just could not catch Amir Khan. He just wasn't nowhere near as quick as Khan. So for me, I think Khan's got to start this fight fast. He's got to get Brook's respect early, try and land his fast combinations early. And I'd say that the style of boxing he's got to use is get in, get out, get in, get out, get in, get out. Use his speed. In, bum, 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 out, in, bum, bum, bum. And he's got to use that side-to-side movement. So you get in, bum, 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 pivot, you're off. He's got to use angles. He's got to use his side-to-side movement. He's got to make sure he's not in the pocket with Kell Brook for very long. He's got to make sure he doesn't give Kell Brook any chance to sort of set his feet and land his shots. Khan's got to get in, ping, 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 bam, 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 get out, bam, 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 step to the side, bum, 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 and he's got to make sure that he's always moving, he's always sort of on his feet. He doesn't have to do it as crazy as back in the days, but he's got to make sure that he's not just standing there in front of Kell Brook, but he's always hitting, moving, getting in, doing your damage, throwing your combos, getting straight out, step into the side, step into that side, never being in the same place for too long, because if he stands in the same place for too long with Kell Brook, then he's giving Kell Brook the opportunity to counter him, to attack him. So I think he's got to use that in and out movement, side to side, and as I've said, don't stay in the pocket too long. And I'd say what he's got to do, keep this up, and he's got to look for the opportunities to do his damage a bit later on in the fight. So the first couple of rounds, just in, out, in, out, in, out. Make it difficult for Kell Brook to find anything. Make it difficult for Kell Brook to read him with the movement and that advantage in hand speed that he clearly has. And then what he can do is, once he's built up an early lead, boom, 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 step, step, step. And then as the fight goes later, the longer the fight goes, that's when he can then start setting his feet a little bit more as Kell Brook tires, and then start doing a bit more damage, start planting his feet a little bit more later on in the fight, and then he can start to possibly do some damage and possibly hurt Kell Brook, or if not that, then sort of go for the point victory. But that's what I'd say: start fast, make sure you're using your legs, using your movement, using that advantage in hand speed, and never stayed too long in the pocket. As far as Kell Brook's concerned, I think he's got to use intelligence and he's got to use aggression. So it's like an intelligent aggression is the style that I think he's got to use. One thing he mustn't do is lose his head. He mustn't lose his cool, because obviously we know that Amir Khan, he annoys Kell Brook, he frustrates Kell Brook. You know, that's how it is. You know, he doesn't like the guy, and he's annoyed by the guy, and you could see by the interviews in the press conference, he can't wait to get his hands on Amir Khan. He cannot wait to get his hands on him, but he can't allow that. He can't allow that anger and that animosity that he has to sort of influence the way that he fights. You know, he's got to make sure that he's using a measured approach, an intelligent approach, and not an angry approach. Because I think if he just fights angry and he just goes out there all guns blazing and tries to just have a wild scrap with Amir Khan, then I think he could walk onto a shot and he could get hurt. You know, I think that's the reality. If he fights with his emotion, he fights angry against Amir Khan and swings against him, I think that's exactly what Amir Khan wants, and that would lead to Kell Brook getting hurt. So he can't be doing that, that's for sure. I think for Brook, he's got to establish a good solid jab, as I always like to say. And I'd say, you know, you make sure that jab is solid and hard. And I'd say what he could do as well is double up the jab. So double up the jab, and when you know, step him with the jabs that he throws, and double him up, so that when you double him up, you push Amir Khan back, and you, even if the first one doesn't land, maybe the second one lands, and then he can set up for some other shots to follow, maybe some little uppercuts, even for the straight right hand. But that would be one of the keys. I think the jab is going to be a very important weapon for Kell Brook. Got to use the jab and double up on the jab. Make sure it's firm, hard, solid. Establish that early. And I'd say another important thing for Kell Brook is to go to the body early. I think from the word go, from the first bell, you know, establish that hard jab, double it up, and mix up your attacks. And I'd say you've got to be very consistently going to Amir Khan's body. I'd say body attack is very important. You know, throw the hooks to the body and all that, because as we know, Khan's a good mover. He can move his feet, fast hands, but the body doesn't move. The body's always going to be there to be hit. So Brook's got to go for that, attack that body early, and that will plant the seeds for him to sort of slow Khan down later on in the round. I'd say he's also got to pace himself, as I think Amir Khan, you could argue, he's got a good engine. He can keep going for several rounds. So I think Kell Brook's got to pace himself, don't rush his work at all. Pace himself and just take his time in this fight. I think he's got to use his timing. He's noted for his timing, so he's got to use that to work against Amir Khan. And I think he could use that timing in order to draw Amir Khan onto shots. You know, use his timing to sort of even sometimes step back and try and sort of use some feints and stuff and try and get Amir Khan to sort of come in and walk onto shots. And then when he lands his counter punches, then that will double the impact. And I think that's another thing that Kell Brook's got to do. He's got to use some tactics there to sort of sometimes step back a little bit, let Amir Khan come in, draw him onto some of his power shots. And he's also got to use a lot of, as I said before, aggression and put pressure on Amir Khan. And he's got to use forward movement. And while he's using a forward movement, he's got to try and put that pressure on Amir Khan, make him think a bit, make him panic a bit. And as Amir Khan makes the mistake while Brook's on the front foot, then he can land the counter shots, you know, and as he does it while Khan makes mistakes, or while Khan tries to come in and throw his combinations, you step back, and when you hit him while he's trying to hit you, because you see the punch coming, then that kind of doubles the impact. And I think that's kind of what Kell Brook's got to do. Got to be careful, intelligent aggression. And as far as prediction, as far as who I think is going to win, I think that Amir Khan's going to win this. And the reason I think that is because I reckon he's got a little bit more left than Kell Brook. Now, I could be totally wrong on this, but that's just my sort of instinct. I think both guys are deteriorated, both guys are at the end of their careers, but I think Amir Khan might have just got his calculations right. He might have just got the right timing to face Kell Brook. So anyway, let me know what you think about that, ladies and gents. Do you think Kell Brook's going to win? Do you think Amir Khan's going to win like myself? And until next time, this is MKO Pugilism, over and out.